I'm Travis Frame, and this is Frame by Frame, and today is going to be the third episode of my series of analysis on Lars von Trier's Depression Trilogy. So, again, starting off, there are minor spoilers for Antichrist, and not really any spoilers for Nymphomaniac or Melancholia. Now that that's out of the way, I'll get into talking about the aspect of depression that is covered in each of the three films, because I think that this is kind of core and central to understanding the films as a whole. One of the interesting aspects of the Depression trilogy is that each of the three films dives into a different aspect of depression, which will be the topic of this video. Many films that tackle the subject matter only deal with it on a surface level, but each of these three go a step further in evaluating how depression can differ greatly for different people. This also prevents the three from feeling repetitive or overly similar to each other when directly compared, as they're very different in what they comment on. And I think that this is important. And one of the reasons why I think these films are so good is that they have more than the surface level understanding. There's so many movies out there that just cover the basics. They're like, oh, this person's sad, they have depression. When there's so much more to how depression impacts people. And it's so disrespectful at times to simply portray it as just this minimal thing. I think a lot of movies portray depression as just, oh, it's something that you're sad and it's like, just do something fun and it'll get over it. And that's not really how it works. And I think that these films do a lot more than just this Hollywood kind of melancholy that I think some people think depression is, which it's not. And so I think it's important for these films to do that, and is one of the reasons why I think there's some of the best films on depression that have been made. Other ones that I really like include Midsummer. I think that one does a really, really good job at talking about depression. But with that being said, let's talk about which one of the films covers which topic and what element of depression. So in Antichrist, the aspect of depression that is covered is the depression that can be caused by loss, the impact that loss can have on you, and how that can cause depression. As seen early in the movie, the couple lose their child due to an unfortunate set of circumstances. This greatly impacts the two protagonists and results in a movie that delves into how painful loss can be. The film is about how loss can affect people in different ways and the damaging effects it can have. It affects both he and she very, very differently, and their depression takes a different route with both how they are immediately impacted and how they seek recovery. Melancholia tackles the aspect of hopelessness within its presentation of depression. It portrays a character that truly feels like they have no potential for hope as a result of their depression. It's probably the most direct representation of depression of any of the characters. She is attempted to be helped. She kind of seeks help, but it really delves into how little hope she feels and how that can be a big part of depression, is that you don't see anything getting better. And that's a pretty severe aspect of it. Nymphomaniac deals with the idea of self-hatred that is brought about by depression, as well as loneliness that can result. Now, obviously, people that feel depression have not always had loss resulting in the depression. People that have depression don't always feel hopelessness. People that have depression don't always feel self-hatred. But based on the experiences that Lars von Trier himself had, he chose to make these three films that deal with those aspects of depression and delve into those details. Obviously, these films might not be relatable to everyone, and that's okay. It doesn't detract from the films, and it doesn't detract from the symptoms of depression that someone may feel if it's not covered in these films. But these are the elements that these films do cover, and I think it's important to just put those out there so that I'm not generalizing depression as a whole when talking about these three films. Lars von Trier chose to portray these three different aspects of depression in very different ways through the films, relying on both direct and indirect depictions of depression. In each of the three films, the characters are shown going through clear stages of depression, each dealing with it in different ways. This is an important aspect to look at when considering the trilogy as a whole. There are four primary characters that are the focus of the three films: he and she in Antichrist, Justine in Melancholia, and Joe in Nymphomaniac. Each character experiences depression. However, no two experiences are depicted in the same manner. But von Trier still chooses to group them together in a trilogy. Why is this? Well, he could be just simply wanting to group them together. Maybe he could have just simply told the same story and put each character in a similar situation and looked at it from a common perspective, in which each of the experiences is easily comparable. Obviously, he chose not to do that. He made three different films in three different genres with characters in very different situations. A horror drama in Antichrist, a sci-fi drama in Melancholia, and more of a drama romance with Nymphomaniac. Essentially, three completely different genre films all convey the same idea, right? Not entirely. The reason that von Trier takes this unorthodox approach to the subject matter of depression is that he clearly knows that when experiencing depression, as well as with handling depression, there's no universal experience or one solution. It is complicated and deeper than simply being sad, which is how many people and the public seem to perceive depression. It is deeper than that, and it is something that truly impacts people's daily lives and can impact how they act and the decisions they make. This can be seen in the various responses to depression that the characters experience. Justine did not experience loss like he and she, but instead is getting married, which should ideally be a very happy day, yet she still feels depressed and a sense of hopelessness. Joe has experienced loss in a different way than he and she, but instead of her depression resulting in anger towards others, like she in Antichrist, it becomes focused on herself. Joe is depressed in a way that causes her to make self-destructive decisions that constantly add to a spiraling sense of self-hatred. Although Justine and Joe did not necessarily experience any one traumatic event like he and she, their depression isn't any less serious or valid. I think that this is one of the key takeaways one can observe from the trilogy as a whole. No one's depression is the same, and at the same time, no one's depression should be devalidated by differing circumstances and experiences. It affects people in all sorts of situations, and no one should feel like they are alone in it or that they feel wrong for feeling like they do. Von Trier paints the portraits of these characters in a way that sheds light on an important subject matter that leaves a lot open for thought with regards to depression and how one can go about getting help because they're not alone. I think that, again, I want to talk about how it's hard to talk about stuff like this. It's hard to talk about depression, and it's hard to watch movies about depression. A lot of people want to sit down and they want to watch popcorn flicks. They want to watch the Avengers. And I love Avengers. I love Marvel. And I'm not saying that those movies don't have deeper themes. They do. And oftentimes they're really good. But these movies are really different. They are not entertaining, really. They're not fun to watch. It is a process. It is an effort to watch these movies. And I can see that for some people, some of these movies could be triggering. And I do want to warn about that because it's something that could happen, that it could be too close to home in certain ways for these films, despite the fact that a lot of them are metaphorical. But that being said, I think that if you look past the disturbing elements of the movies, they do a really good job at communicating these ideas, at communicating von Trier's personal experiences, and at telling a mature take on a very serious subject. And I think that this is one of the most important episodes because you cannot look at this series and just say it's about depression. It's about depression in this way. It's about depression in that way. Each of these three films talks about depression in a different way that make them unique and make them special and make them powerful. And with that, that concludes the third episode. And I hope you are looking forward to episode 4 for those that are still hopefully watching the series. And thank you.